Welcome everybody to this webinar. I'm Philip Heidbrink. I'm the CEO of SciLife. And with us today, we have the special guest, Vanessa Vankerckhoven from Novosanis. Vanessa, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome.
So yeah, maybe Vanessa, you can just do a quick introduction about yourself so that people know who you are, where you come from, etc.
Yeah, so I'm Vanessa Vankerckhoven. From a background perspective, I have a PhD in medical microbiology, starting my career at the University of Antwerp, and then moving away from academia and entering into the industry life since 2013, where I'm now the CEO and founder of Novosanis medical device company.
Perfect. Thank you for that. So yeah, welcome to this webinar. I'm very excited to have this conversation with you. I think it's going to be interesting for the audience as well to see the whole trajectory that you did with Novosanis. So yeah, that's what we're going to talk about today. The webinar has kind of 3 sections. We're now doing the first section, the brief introduction of ourselves and the topic of this webinar. And then the middle section will be an explanation from Novosanis and a conversation with Vanessa to understand how this whole trajectory was for Novosanis from the inception of the idea and the product, going through the go-to-market strategy and execution, getting certified, and even acquisition of Novosanis as a medical device company by a bigger group from the US. So it's really very interesting for all medical device companies that are in some stage of that whole path, right? Because Novosanis already went through the whole path themselves under the leadership of Vanessa. So I'm very excited to hear the story and ask any question that comes up throughout this conversation. At the end, we will make sure to have a few 10 to 15 minutes for Q&A. And just to make sure that we are time conscious, any questions that cannot be answered within this hour of webinar, it's in the end, it's just an hour. We will make sure to answer these questions over email. So don't worry if your question is not answered in here. Good. So let's continue with the main section of the webinar. Vanessa, over to you. This is the first slide. Go ahead, please.
I don't see any slides, but
you don't see the slides?
No.
Okay, so I am sharing screen, or am I? Let me try that again.
Yes, now I can see.
Now you can see. Okay, sorry about
that.
Yeah.
So perhaps to give a little bit of insight. So it all started in academia, where we were being asked to have a closer look at the new HPV vaccine. So I'm talking now about 2009, 2010 timeframe. So looking into young girls that needed to get the human papillomavirus vaccine to ensure they would be at the lower risk for development of cervical cancer. Of course, in these young girls, you don't want to do a cervical sample because that would be too damaging at that young age. So we started exploring alternatives, and that actually led us to urine. And what we found is that we really needed the first part of the urine flow, basically the first up to 20 milliliters of the urine flow. But if you ask that to a patient, that's really, really challenging. And I think the urine cups speak to itself on the picture. So that's the result we got when we asked people to collect the first 20 milliliters. It's really difficult in your head to understand how much you need to collect. So that's where we basically kicked off the idea to start developing a device and that would allow for that first portion of the urine flow. And we did that in a very collaborative spirit, a multidisciplinary approach by collaborating with the Institute for Vaccines and Infectious Diseases, where I was working myself at the time as an innovation manager, and bridging that with all the know-how and expertise from the Department of Product Development at Artesis University College at the time, and also bridging with the expertise from Foxtail Design and Engineering Company out of Antwerp.
Nice. So you're mentioning HPV. So how did you come to the idea to use urine for that as opposed to other things like blood or saliva or other things?
Yeah, I think really thinking about those young cohorts or those young girls, we wanted to go as non-invasive as possible. Reflecting on that, you can actually see we talk about urine, but it's actually the washout of very important analytes that are available. When you start urinating, those actually go into that initial flow of urine, and that makes the sample so super valuable. And knowing that those HPV particles are there and they are basically flushed out when you start urinating, it's that first portion you want to capture. So that made us think about the very non-invasive nature of urine and being such an important carrier of that of those analytes.
And I understood that this is also used for oncology already, right? So to detect a specific, maybe you can explain a little bit around that. So
yeah, absolutely. So it's not only the HPV. That's what we all did in academia. So it's that was of course a very interesting first kickoff of thinking of urine and non-invasive sample types. But if you look at oncology applications, one application is prostate cancer, where indeed you again start using that initial flow of urine, and that's indeed the first commercial trajectory we have seen.
Interesting. Yeah. So and it's the first commercial trajectory. So you came with the idea for something else, and then you see that commercially it has a completely different direction at the end, right? Yeah,
and I think that's a difference when you come from academia versus going into industry. You see trends and tendencies in a slightly different manner, and I think that's how indeed from the initial idea we moved into a slightly different direction initially from a commercial trajectory.
Yeah, exactly. Shall we move on to the next slide?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
So that actually led then to the possibility for us of creating that device to start finding a company, which was then called Novosanis. So we kicked that off in March 2013 and also started to look for funding. So at the time, there were no real incubator models at the University of Antwerp. So we really had to kickstart everything through finding a spin-off company from the university and start looking for external investors to really start growing the business and making sure we could end up with a commercial product as a company.
So how large was the team when you started?
Actually, just 1.5. So I joined full time. So that's I really made a step from academia, just stopping my career over there, and then going full on with the company. And then Koen, who's was at the time the CEO of Oxdale, joined forces on a part-time basis.
Wow. So how much certainty of success did you have to go all in with this project? So because it's a big step for you personally, right? So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I had zero certainty to be honest, exactly. and zero funding to start with. So but I think I was so passionate about the devices and I really saw the potential of how it could help in healthcare that I really wanted to move this forward.
Okay, and then you did get some initial financial means to start, right? It's 1.5%. It's just you. So, but then how did you fund the project?
We started scouting for external investors, which was not an easy task because we were so early stage. We just had some initial prototypes available. So going into the larger equity funds was very, very challenging because of the early stage of the project. But we found a family office. So that was great. He really believed in the product and wanted to invest. So he joined in on the company in July 2013, and that allowed us also to start growing the team and growing the business.
Okay, nice. Okay.
So that really helped us then to really work on that product. So the initial prototypes started to gain more industrial look and feel, and we were able to certify the first product we had, so the Colipy device, and it's shown on the slide here as well how it works. So it's really easy. We really aimed for high usability, user friendliness. So you just need to screw on the collector tube to the housing. At that time, you still needed to do a click to open up the funnel to allow for easier urinating. And then when you start urinating, preferably in front of the toilet, you capture that first fraction of the urine. The floater goes up, and then the remainder goes into the toilet through the outlet. So really easy, convenient way to capture that volumetric sample. And yeah, so we prepared all the files needed for the CE marking, which we obtained then in November 2014.
Okay, so how long did it take for Novosanis to go from company creation to CE certification, more or less?
Yeah, so we kicked off March 2013, but actually only July. So yeah, a year and a half, close to a year and a half beyond what we had been doing in academia. So it did take quite a bit of time. Yeah.
Yeah, but still. And were you already ISO 13485 certified before you went for CE?
No, we did kick off the ISO certification trajectory in July 2013 with an external consultancy company, and really started working on getting compliancy with ISO 13485. So what was required, of course, under CE is to have a quality system. Preferably, it's ISO 13485 certified, but we didn't have the certification yet when we obtained the CE mark.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So we have this slide in here, but I would like to ask the audience, depending on the people here, how familiar are you with IVD? Does everybody know what IVD is? And then we can go a little bit more into detail, or everybody knows enough about the topic and we can just skip over this. If you can just let us know in the chat, that would be useful. I'm a newbie, says Diego.
And I just saw a question as well on the classification, Philippe, so I can briefly talk to this.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Then go ahead.
Yeah, so Colipy actually is a medical device, but within the medical devices, you also have in vitro diagnostic devices, so IVD, and the specimen receptacle, so devices suited for collection of, for instance, urine, are classified as in vitro diagnostic devices. So we reside under that subcategory of IVD within the medical device regulations now.
Yeah. Okay.
And if you look at how is that changing, so we next to the medical device regulations, there's a separate category, so the in vitro diagnostic devices, and there we now are also moving into regulations. We're still working under the directives right now, but we'll move into the regulations May 2022, so this year. So really pushing hard to get it certified under the regulations as well. And we're sort of lucky because the specimen receptacles will remain in the self-certification category as a Class A under the IVDR.
Okay, I hope that was helpful for everybody on the call. If there are additional questions regarding this, feel free to post them, right? That's the whole idea about this webinar. It's hard for us to know how much in depth we should go. So yeah, with that, let's move on.
Yeah, so you've seen that first design that I showed earlier, which we were able to also CE mark, but that also caused immediately some challenges because what we had been working on was very user friendly, but it did cause some challenges in sales because there were 7 components. It was not too easy to manufacture and to build, so that also led to a certain cost of goods sold and making the product basically too expensive to get sold. So that brought us back to the drawing board and basically have a full redesign. And as you can now see on that picture, we ended up with only 4 components. So it was a quite disruptive rethinking of the design, not really changing anything about the fact that we were capturing that first void, but all about the plastics, the components, the manufacturability, and making
itself,
also,
right?
and making sure that we upscale the manufacturing as well in the longer term. That then led to a new CE IVD certification, which we obtained in June 2015. And perhaps to the point that I think might have been raised in the chat box as well, we were posed with an additional challenge by filing this. It's, even though it's self-certification, you do need to get the feedback from VAG, so the Belgian authority with whom you file this the CE marking. They got the feedback that we also needed to classify the funnel separately because it could touch the body. So that would be for them considered to be a medical device class 1. So all of a sudden we were under both the medical device as well as the IVD section of the business. Yeah.
And that was absolutely not expected. So you had to go back to the drawing board. Regulation is more stringent. So how did you cope financially with it? Because you tried to go to market with a first version of the device, and then you see that it somehow comes back, and you have to rethink the whole device. You need to change a lot of stuff internally, on product level, on company level. So how did you cope with that from a financial perspective?
Yeah, and at that time we were a team of 5 people, so we did grow a little bit, but just a very, very tiny team as well. So yeah, there was a lot of investor relationship management tying into that, managing expectations for the investor and the team as well, to really create that new product line, and by listening really to what our customers needed. So I think we had this ideal scenario in our heads of what people needed, and started executing on that. But then when we reached out to the market and got a better understanding of the needs, and especially what would be acceptable from a pricing point of view, that really drove those decisions. So that was one of the key mistakes, but I think we've learned a lot in that process.
Yeah, and I think that's a thing that happens a lot, right? People you build something with some specific expectation of acceptance in the market, but then when you build too far, you spend all this time and money on building this device, and you wait too long to get feedback, then it gets very costly, and also the go-to-market gets stretched a lot, right? So what would you have done differently? Did you also make that mistake? You feel that maybe we waited too long to talk to the market about what we're doing and designing?
Yeah, I think we should have done that a lot earlier in the process, really understand and just talk to people. People are actually pretty open when you reach out to them and you start showing even initial prototypes and getting their feedback. I think that really helps then in the longer term, but we should have done that a lot earlier in the process. It would have shortened the trajectory.
What also comes to mind, this type of device, I can imagine we're a software company, so we can just get a lot of users in front of some screens and get their opinion, right, about the design, workflows, whatever, how the software looks and feels. This is a medical device which requires people to somehow try it or talk about this. How do you somehow get enough users? Where do you go find those users to test this or to talk about this?
That's a very good question. You can't just go out on the street and ask people to start peeing in the quality device. But no, that's a valid question. No, I think we've done a lot on usability and really capture the feedback from the users. And we've done that mainly also through grant applications, where, for instance, the Flemish grants would allow for such usability studies to be executed. We did the initial ones in close collaboration with University of Antwerp, because of course, being from academia. But secondly, we had also as part of grant application, I think it's called the cross-care trajectory. There we came in touch with the living labs, and they really execute on usability through co-creation sessions and having people really use the product and getting very valuable feedback through questionnaires, but also through very interactive sessions. And I think that's been very, very helpful in this trajectory as well.
So you really went out there and got some help, both on finding these users through some other means, through the university, through this other entity, and also because usability studies, they probably cost a lot of money if you just hire a company to do those. So I understand that that was financed through grants from the government, correct?
Yes, correct. Or European funding.
Or European
yes,
funding.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. I think we've been pretty successful, and that might have been a little bit our strength coming out of academia, that we were already a little bit familiar with the grant funding landscape, and we're pretty successful in applying for those grants and obtaining those.
Okay. I'm double checking. Yeah, so I see a question in relation to that from Xavier. How did the EU help? I do remember you obtained the seal of excellence.
Yeah, correct. So we did get, we never made it to an actual SME phase 2. There we obtained a lot of the seals of excellence, but we never got the grant funding. We did get grant funding through Interreg, so that's a European portal as well. So that's a collaboration Netherlands, Belgium, and then through other channels as well, like Eurostars. For those on the call, it is worthwhile to apply for those European funds. It's not because you're a very small company that you would not be able to obtain these grants, and they're really helpful in the process as well, because reaching out to the investor community the whole time is not the most easy thing to do either. So leveraging with the grants is a very balanced way of obtaining the funding and moving forward with your project. Okay,
interesting. All right. Let's move on. ISO 13485. I think an interesting topic for everybody on the call. Very curious.
Yeah, so for ISO 13485, we started building our quality management system, and we went digital from the beginning. Really crafting the files ourselves, building the system from scratch and making it our own. And that led to a successful document audit, which is the first phase in the certification process. So the auditor will check whether your documents make sense and whether you have all the procedures in place. And then the second phase would be running through the implementation audit. Of course, as a young company, not doing too much yet from a manufacturing and commercial trajectory point of view, that makes it not too harsh to run through an implementation audit once you have your document system in place. We successfully certified our quality system in December 2015. So kicking it off July 2013 and then getting certified December 2015. So it did take quite a bit of time, but we managed to run through the process successfully.
Okay, and you mentioned you found it important to go digital immediately. I mean, you're I think at that point you're 5 people, so you could just do it with Word and Excel files, right? So why did you find it important to immediately set it up digitally? Yeah,
we got a lot of advice by people that actually said you should go paper and just run the quality system on paper. And I was like, okay, we're like 2015, 2013. Why should we run on paper? And there should be possibilities for us to run in a digital way. But there were not too many providers at that time. So we ended up with selecting one linked to the fact that our external consultant was using that platform as well. I think that helped in establishing it initially through a remote server. So VPN connection was needed, but we did go digital straight away.
Remote server, VPN. Okay,
yeah.
It's digital, but it still sounds old-fashioned, right? But yeah. Okay. Okay, and so regarding ISO 13485, what would you say were the main challenges of getting that certification as a medical device company? Can you explain a little bit how you went through that path, how you implemented the quality system? What roadblocks did you find, or what challenges that you had to solve? That might be interesting.
Yeah, I think you probably can do this a lot quicker. Eh? If I see that we started it off in July 2013, I can imagine that there's probably people that can run this in a few months' time. Yeah, for us it was challenging, also being a small team, but also because we really wanted to make it our own immediately. So not really start from off-the-shelf templates and then running successfully through the document audit. We really wanted to make it our own system from the beginning and really have a well thought through process and writing those procedures from scratch. And I think if I look back at that trajectory right now, I would for sure do it again, even though it takes longer. It's so much more valuable. I still remember some of the initial documents that we drafted. They're still part of our current workflows and system, and they still make a lot of sense now, being so much further on and running so much more production. So it really helps if you do that by yourself and really start from scratch.
So, but it was not like the team of 5 people had experience in setting up a quality system like that. Did you have in-house knowledge about that, or you really you went through the consultancy solution?
We had a lot of common sense in the team, but
okay, yeah, that's a handy.
No real experience. No, so we definitely opted for consultancy, and that was really helpful to review the files and really run us through the process and share all the insights on ISO 13485 and medical device industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that in the end there are 2 ways, right? I think that both going through templates first and modifying these, because it already gives you a structure and a content which is very useful to make it your own and modify that according to your processes. Obviously, what you cannot do is just copy and paste the templates and that's it. That doesn't make sense. But then at least the templates are somehow helping you understand the path towards this whole quality system that you need to put in place. Then if that would be probably the cheapest solution. If you can afford it, it's probably better to do it through a consultancy firm or consultants. It's more costly, but then you can really start from scratch. Starting from scratch without the in-house know-how, without consultancy and without templates, I guess it's very, very hard, right? You have to go through the whole learning process and write everything yourself. That's probably hard. What we did at SciLife, we are not 13485. We don't need to be regulated. We did a combination. So we based it on templates that we modified, but with consultancy help. So I think that for everybody that needs to do this, it's really worth thinking about what works best for you, and depending on the economic resources that you have to get consultancy help. That's definitely going to make your quality system more powerful if you can start from scratch and build it up like that. Interesting. Okay. Let's go to your next slide.
Yeah, perhaps from the chat for it, because there's perhaps 2 questions I could answer as well. So the system was originally certified according to 2003, and we're now, of course, 2016. So that was just due to the time frame for that question. And then for the notified body, that's a very valid one, because that's a big challenge now, I think, for everyone in the medical device industry. There are so fewer notified bodies, so selecting one really early on in the process is really important, for sure. So we selected SGS as a certified as a notified body, but you really need to have one to get your quality system certified, and that's causing big challenges now for medical device industry, because they limited the amount of notified bodies in the process. So I think that was a valid point that was being raised.
Okay. Yeah, I see quite some discussion in the chat. Yeah, but let me also go through that in the Q&A section to see if I missed anything.
That's good.
I see.
Perfect.
Also, so people are helping out each other. Johannes
Yeah.
is answering some of the users' questions too. Thank you for that, Johannes. That's very helpful. Yeah, that's the idea, right? We have to keep it interactive and add as much value as you can to your understanding of this whole process. And if there's anything that you want to know from Vanessa, just make sure you ask. Okay.
So indeed, it helps now to land our first contract with two key companies. We became part of their package, which was really cool too. So if you open up their boxes, you will see that there's a quality device inside of those. So that was a really big milestone, I think, in our plan, and that brings me a little bit back to the earlier point you made on the type of industry where we had so much work done in HPV, so human papillomavirus, and we actually landed our first contract in prostate cancer field. So a little bit of a different area, but it made a lot of sense, because they really needed that first void to allow for the biomarkers to be detected in the urine sample.
Mm-hmm. And then, so first immediately in oncology. So does that mean that you went from a marketing and sales perspective, you focused on that space, or you continued also with the idea that the HPV market, which was the initial idea, would still be interesting? So
yeah, I think it broadened our scope of possibility tremendously. So we immediately started taking deeper dives into the oncology field and exploring where urine and our device could actually contribute as well. So if I look at what's happening in that field, you can immediately think of bladder cancer, kidney cancer, where you associate urine as a key sample type. But what we see now, and we're doing some in-house research on that, you can even detect breast cancer biomarkers in urine samples. So it's really a field that is really growing, and is looking more and more into non-invasive sample types to have that early detection and make sure we can help people really quickly in the process and assist in the treatment schemes.
So Vanessa, how would that work? Because are you guys actively investigating if urine would work for other types of detection, for example, breast cancer, in order to then convince companies to use urine for that? Are you actively investigating in that space, or you say no, we are a medical device company, we're focusing on building and delivering this product, iterations of this product according to what customers require? I'm just curious to know how far you go into the scientific investment to identify other use cases for your product, so to broaden your market. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And that goes two ways. So on the one hand, there's of course sort of like a key customer base that we are targeting, but it's also, I think, in medical devices, it's so important to have strong data. The science is really key. So we have good ongoing partnerships with academia, key opinion leader network that we build on. So we do execute on own in-house research and really building partnerships to get that strong data data, for instance, on the breast cancer and other types of cancer, but also still working on that from a human papillomavirus point of view as well. We still run clinical trials and extend the scope and the data sets that we have available. Because to your point, there's indeed, in a lot of cases, we need people to switch sample types. They need to reflect on the fact that urine could be a valid sample type for them, even though they're using blood or tissue right now. They could see the potential that urine can offer in the oncology and the infectious disease space. So, and that's where we need that strong data to build on.
And then you are able to provide them this data to help them assess it better somehow and convince them to use this other sample type. Is that?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And that's wow. Part of our marketing campaigns as well. Everything's built on science and creating that awareness on non-invasive sample types.
Okay, so how or what percentage of your customer base would you say now would be focused on oncology or HPV or other sectors?
Yeah, I think we started off indeed in more the oncology space. So I think initially we had about a ratio of 90% to versus 10% coming out of the infectious disease space. But we see now, because the infectious disease space was also a more established market and requests even more strong data, whereas oncology is a bit more early stage and more easy to adopt new innovations. But we now see throughout the course, because we've been working in this field now over 10 years, we now see moving pieces towards more and more going into infectious disease as well, because we have more of that data available. So I now see, I think, around 60% coming out of oncology and 40% out of infectious diseases.
Okay. Nice. Okay, so you diversify, which is also good for the company, right? From a risk perspective. And then you also mentioned that the device is normally packaged within the box of your customer. Is that always the format in which you sell the device? So it's always part of something else, or not necessarily?
Yeah, that was also a very interesting first business model, to be honest. We hadn't even reflected on the fact that it would become part of their offering and part of their CE marking, basically them being the legal manufacturer of the end product. So in this case, we are an OEM provider. So that was a very first interesting business model. When we initially started building the device, we saw that more as almost an off-the-shelf product which we could provide to customers and not necessarily become part of glossy boxes that go into the clinic.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing that I noticed is that you immediately landed as a very small company. You landed quite a big customer. So what were the challenges there to really service this type of customer? Because that's also not easy, right? Any challenges that you had to overcome for this?
I think the good news was that we already had that big exercise of going back to the drawing board and at that time already reflecting on upscaling of manufacturing, because if we hadn't done that, I think we would never have been in a position where we could have landed this type of deal. Having the ISO certification in place was very important, of course, for our customers as well, and making sure we have a strong quality system in place and provide quality product to our customers. So I think those are some of the key criteria that they were looking at. So how sustainable is this? Are they able to go for upscaled manufacturing? If we grow the business, can they grow equally alongside us and continue in supply? That I think that was very, very important for them.
Okay. Yeah, so I have more questions come to mind, but we have to make sure that we can at least finish the presentation and have more questions from the audience. So let's move on to the next one.
Yeah, so actually I started off in the city center of Antwerp in a business center, having just one table, one chair, and one cupboard. But yeah, that was not for sure going to allow for any production of medical devices. So in 2015 we moved to Weinigen, where we then had a facility where we started building. So we built from scratch an own clean area, and we had warehousing capabilities on site.
Okay, and this would be the clean area?
Yes. So we built that ourselves and did all the analysis to really come up with a very controlled environment to start building our medical devices or IVD products in-house on site. We don't do the injection molding, but we do in-house assembly, labeling, packaging is all done on site.
Injection molding happens in China then?
Yes, we have a plant in China, and we in the midst of COVID, we also moved to Belgium. So we have a second supply now in Belgium to really help in further upscaling the business and
nice.
Having shorter lead times because driving a truck from within Belgium versus getting sea freight from China makes a slight difference.
Yeah, I can imagine. So regarding this clean area, right? How large was the company then, and did you have expertise in house to set something like this up? How did you go about this?
Yeah, so again, we didn't have any expertise. I think the team at that point in time, we were probably around 8 to 9 people. So we were growing once we moved to Weinigen. But here we also had help from, in this case, Volksdale to help out in the actual build and simulation of the clean area. Next to, of course, again, consultancy on ISO13485. So what will it take to get that area up and running under our certification?
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So yeah, it's challenging. But yeah, if you just get their expertise, outsourced, whatever, then it's definitely doable, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, these are not 8 people anymore.
No. So we started growing the team because as a medical device company, you actually need to have everything. You need to have operations, manufacturing, operators, quality control, sales, marketing, R&D, which is real core. We started as an R&D company, of course, with a small team, but now, everything needed to go into a commercial stage. So we really had to significantly grow the team alongside.
How difficult was it for you to grow the team in terms of hiring and also I think people that are very technical or science minded, it's hard to do this mental shift to say no, we really have to have marketing in place, business development, sales. So how did you cope with it? Did you departmentalize the business and then put a person in each department and hire managers initially, or you were managing somehow everything and just hired people to do the work? How did you grow that to become a business that has all the items in place?
Yeah, I think my initial hires were not always too successful because I was scouting a little bit too much towards the technical expertise or the expertise they had. But I think once we started flipping that around and going more for the gut feeling approach, what type of person is this? What does he or she fit a small startup? Because I think that's really important. You're a small team. You need to be able to wear different hats. So it's not because you're in R&D, you don't need to know anything about marketing or quality. It always goes hand in hand. So we really started scouting for a highly complementary team and making the skill set as broad as possible, and really scouting for people that had a DNA that fit a startup environment and wanted to go the extra mile and driven by innovation and bringing these products to market.
Even though that often means that if they have a very broad knowledge, they have less in-depth knowledge, but at that point I guess that the core team had enough scientific knowledge and then it's not a big issue. Would that
Yeah, I
make
think
sense?
everybody does have a good, solid own expertise or scientific backbone. I think we see that as well. But they have the flexibility to quickly adapt, I think, to other sectors or other people's thought process, and I think that's been very, very helpful in the course of the company.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, growing the team is one of the main or the most challenging parts of the business eventually, right?
Yeah, and every step along the way, you'll see that you tend to lose some people because not everybody is then fitting with, for instance, the more scale-up environment we're now in. So
absolutely, yeah, a business that grows rapidly. The way the business is today is very different from how the business looks a year later or 2 years later. So obviously, and it's fine, right? I mean, people help you for a certain time during that path that the business goes through until they say, hey, this is not for me, and they leave, and you replace them with somebody else that does like the status in which the company is in. So I guess that's very natural and healthy. So you experience that as well, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Yeah, so then we as we were growing, of course, moving from R&D to being a sales company, we also introduced SciLife because, running through that VPN and going through the remote server connection, that wasn't working too well anymore with such a large team. So we really started scouting for cloud-based applications and tools. We also started, of course, from the initial R&D point of view to the larger company, the number of procedures, but mainly also instructions, forms, everything was grown. And we had like now a full-blown quality system. So we needed to scout for different solutions to solve our needs. And I think that's where SciLife was introduced and successfully introduced in September 2018.
Absolutely. Yeah, okay, nice. Okay, and then on to
acquisition. Yes, indeed. Yeah, so we started, I think, already in 2018, of course, and then this led to the acquisition in January 2019, where we're still a Belgian company, still today, but we are part of a larger US-based company, OraSure Technologies. So we're one of the subsidiaries in that group.
Okay, so what does that mean, right? So you have this project that started from academia with 1.5 persons. You grow that, then you have this business with all the elements in place, and you think, okay, this is going well, and we're starting to have deals and customers, and then you have this opportunity to already get acquired. I mean, how long in are you? Like 5 years or no, a little bit more? So
we're a few years in the acquisition now. So initially, of course, you run through the integration process, and I think the good thing about OraSure is that they've the way they've approached the integration was very open. They really loved our corporate culture, the way that we were approaching things, and they also started adopting things that we already had in place. So we didn't necessarily have to move to all of their platforms and all of their systems. They really looked at what's the best of both worlds, and one of them was actually SciLife. So they decided to adopt SciLife within the larger organization. So we're rolling that out now to all the different, because we're a family of companies, so we're rolling that out to the family of companies. And I think it's nice to see how they've approached us and how we've been able to really grow the business. They've invested in further upscaling of the business, but really maintained our entity and identity in the process.
And Vanessa, were you at that time actively searching for a buyer to strategically get acquired and move up to a different league somehow, or you were approached by OraSure? How did that go?
Well, it actually started with a basic sales talk. So one of the other subsidiaries in the group is DNA Genotech. They have collection devices, stool, saliva, skin. So we approached them with explaining what we had from a urine collection point of view. And from a sales perspective, how can we start working together? And this product might fit your portfolio. And I think we were about 15 minutes into the conversation, and they were like, "Hey guys, how would you feel about an acquisition? Would you be open to this?" So yeah.
Okay. I'm selling I'm selling you my product, and then
Yeah.
you end up selling your business, right?
Yes. Indeed. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. And then the whole, you often hear a lot of negative comments from employees, right, after a merger or acquisition, because not everybody wants to work in a corporate environment, or they don't feel that the change is good for them professionally or environmentally. So what was the what were the comments from employees? How did that go for your company?
Yeah, I think it went actually really good. I think we lost very few people in the process. I think even only one person, to be really honest. So I think everybody, I think the way that also the OraSure team and the integration team has handled it was really nice. They really were very open, real honest in all of their communications. They came on site and really got a better understanding of who were the people in the team, because for OraSure, people are really, really important. It's the core of the business, and they rate that very, very highly. So being on site and really talking to the team and understanding how we had been working, I think that's been a very good way to approach this acquisition and the integration of our team in the larger organization. So I think people felt welcome, actually.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, it was overall a good a very good process for everybody.
Yeah,
and a good,
absolutely.
okay,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm aware of the fact that we only have 7 minutes left. I have more questions because we could talk forever, right? About this. This is interesting. I'm looking at the chat, and I see a lot of stuff happening in the chat. We should get Johannes online someday because he's answering questions in the chat, which is very helpful. Again, thank you for that, Johannes. But I'm going to try to identify if there are any questions in the chat. Oh, I see also questions in Q&A. So let's do these ones first, because I think these are addressed specifically already. Are you now open? A question from Delilah, if I pronounce this correctly. A question to Vanessa: are you now open to other businesses? Do you have consultants that can help others sponsor in regulatory ISO certifications, etc.? So do you have consultants?
we still use consultants, if that's the question. So we still heavily rely on external resources and really help, even though we have grown the team. And of course, under the wings of OraSure, we now have a fully fledged regulatory team, a fully fledged quality team. But yet, I think the external consultants still offer additional and added value in the process.
Okay. I hope that answers your question, Delilah. If we misunderstood, definitely post it again. I want to make sure that we got it right. Another question from Delilah that I see here: is SciLife also part of OraSure, or just misunderstanding? No. So
not yet. Just kidding.
Is there something I don't know?
No.
Any internal discussions you should tell me about? No. So SciLife, so Novosanis became our customer because they're using SciLife for their quality system and whatnot. So then Novosanis was acquired by OraSure, and then OraSure looks at, according to the acquisitions that they do, instead of just dictating to the acquired company, you have to use these systems, they are open to see what is working in terms of systems very well for that acquired company, and then they evaluate if OraSure as a group can also benefit from implementing that system. And that's what happened. So OraSure decided, instead of having Novosanis switch to whatever system they were using at that time at OraSure, OraSure said, let's implement SciLife within all the family of companies within the group. So OraSure became our customer. It's not that OraSure acquired SciLife. So I hope that answers the question, Delilah. Another question from Leili. Can you share future plan and strategy to increase Novosanis market share in the Asian/African market?
Yeah, sure. I think what we had been doing initially, especially being a smaller company, was to really build on in-house sales, direct sales models. And what we're doing right now is to build more of a distribution network. And I think the good thing about being part of the OraSure family of companies now is indeed that regulatory support we're getting. Because if you want to move into other markets, and that's a big challenge in the medical device industry as well, you need to get your product registered in all of those different countries. So the CE marking as such is not sufficient. You really need all of those local registrations, for instance, for Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand. And that's, of course, where regulatory affairs comes into play, because they really support those product registrations. And that's the only way, I think, to really move and establish market share into those territories. And we're actively executing on that for sure.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for that, Vanessa. Again, Leili, I hope that answers your question. We have a few minutes left. I want to be time conscious, so we're going to do a few more questions. Any questions that are not handled in this webinar, remember that you can still post them. We will make sure to come back to you over email, and Vanessa or me will answer these questions over mail. I hope that helps. So I have another question from Xavier. What are your views on the new Flanders Health Tech cluster, which MedTech Flanders is part of, together with Flanders Bio and DSP? Is there a good evolution? Should a startup become a member at an early stage to get quicker go-to-markets? Or was SciLife support sufficient? I like the last part of the question, Xavier. So yeah, can you explain a little bit about these the cluster, and any advice on when to join such a cluster in terms of advice? And
yeah, I think that's a very good question, because I did approach the fact of grant funding for one, but I think another thing that's been very, very valuable in our go-to-market strategy is being part of these cluster organizations. So initially Flanders Bio, we're also a member of MedTech Flanders, now of the larger cluster, and that really aids, because they really help. They know the playing field of the industry. They help you by going to conferences. There's even some subsidies that you can apply for. That's mostly done with Flanders Investment and Trade. But I think it's a very good way to better understand the different markets by being part of these organizations. So yeah, I would definitely encourage to be part of those, because it really helps in your go-to-market strategy and gain commercial trajectory a lot quicker in the process.
Thank you, Vanessa. And maybe let's just squeeze one last question in that we also got from Camille. Tips on how to move from research to market faster. Any high-level tips that you can say from the research part into the go-to-market strategy? Anything that you can say, this was very, very helpful or instrumental for Novosanis that you learned from your journey?
Yeah, I think talking to people, networking, and really, starting to understand who are our customers, how can we gain their trust, and how can we get them to buy our product, and really doing all of those outreach communications. I think that's very, very helpful and really needed. So otherwise, you can continue working on the development like forever. You will always see new improvements coming up, but ultimately you just want to move the product into the market. So talking and to people early on, I think is really key to shorten your trajectory and really move into that sales organization.
Yeah, and also I see this is one of your last slides. Don't do stuff just because of ISO
Yeah.
13485. I think that's also good advice, right? It needs to make sense from your business and a medical device product perspective. Everything that you do in your quality system, and ISO is there just to guide you how far you need to go into that from a regulatory perspective. Any other comment on this, Vanessa?
Yeah, I think it's all about customer satisfaction and making sure you get high quality product out there. And it was actually one of the operators that we hired. When I asked him, "Do you know about ISO 13485?" He said, "Well, you don't do stuff because of ISO 13485. You do it because of your happy customers."
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. In the end, the business is a how you call that, entity where customers come in at one side and happy customers come out at the other side, right? That's
Yeah.
how it should be. Whatever you do in between, whatever you sell to them, whatever you offer them, is just to make sure that their problem, their pain point, or is solved, so that they become a happy customer. That's absolutely the main focus that everybody should have. So yeah, with that, I think we have to wrap up. I would like to thank everybody. First of all, Vanessa, for being in this call. Very interesting call. I liked it a lot. I loved your journey, the speed and the achievements that you had during that journey. Thank you very much for coming online, explaining this and talking to the audience. And then also the audience, thank you for being here, investing time in this, listening to our chat and asking very interesting questions. With that, thank you everybody. Have a great day and see you soon.